In today's classroom, diversity of all kinds is increasingly evident. Students of differing races, ethnicities, and cultural backgrounds are all learning alongside one another. The augmented diversity in the classroom means that teachers need to utilize a different and more relevant pedagogy than teachers of the past. Teachers of the 21st century need to be leaders of a multicultural classroom by intertwining this concept in core subjects like social studies. The question to examine is, can multicultural education and culturally relevant pedagogy be used to increase student interest in social studies? Today, fellow educators, we will examine this question by studying multicultural education. There is no single definition of multicultural education. David Welton says that multicultural education and cultural pluralism reflect the notion that the richness of our society is rooted in every nook and cranny on the globe, and that the purpose of multicultural education is to help all children, regardless of ethnicity, gender, disabilities, or social class, understand and appreciate events and people from various points of view. James and Cherry Banks build upon this notion by allowing all students to examine different perspectives by creating 5 unique categories that, together, create a valuable multicultural education. These 5 categories include content integration, the knowledge construction process, prejudice reduction, equity pedagogy, and an empowering school culture and social structure. By examining these 5 dimensions, teachers will have a deeper understanding of multicultural education and what is required of educators. In an interview with the National Educators Association, Dr. Banks examined these dimensions. The first dimension he mentions is content integration. This involves integrating people and concepts from diverse cultures into the curriculum. Another dimension, knowledge construction, means that educators will allow students to think critically and help learners to actively seek culturally responsible knowledge. Another dimension, prejudice reduction, means that educators should be aware of cultural sensitivities and help students to develop positive attitudes towards diverse races. The next dimension, empowering school culture and social structure, entails educators looking at the climate of the school as a whole and evaluating if there is an unconscious bias against diverse groups. The final dimension is equity pedagogy. James and Cherry Banks say, "We define equity pedagogy as teaching strategies and classroom environments that help students from diverse racial, ethnic, and cultural groups attain the knowledge, skills, and attitudes needed to function effectively within, and help create and perpetuate a just, humane, and democratic society." It is important to note that teachers should not aim to fit students into modern society. Rather, they should allow learners to be activists for an unbiased and morally sound society. It involves an educator differentiating their teaching strategies for individual students so that they can reach their full potentials and be productive and effective members of this democratic society. It is meant to make learning fair for all students. Dr. Banks believes that equity pedagogy means that teachers will alter their teaching strategies for diverse students in an effort to help them understand. It means that teachers should be flexible and be willing to change their methods to reach individual students. When studying multicultural education and culturally relevant pedagogy and their relation to social studies, it is pertinent to study the work of authors Janet Allman, Barbara Knighton, and Jared Brophy. They suggest that elementary-age students can begin to learn about diverse cultures and social studies by studying cultural universals. They say cultural universals are domains of human experience that have existed in all cultures, past and present. Cultural universals may act as a building block to teach students about other cultures. Educators can use this to teach students about diverse groups by relating the information from the new culture to the cultural universal that students already understand. The authors say, "The approach makes it easy to attend to diversity in natural and productive ways. When lessons deal with life in the past or in other cultures, they focus on commonalities, so they highlight similarities rather than differences. Cultural universals can act as the bridge to lead students seamlessly into a social studies classroom emphasizing multicultural education." As educators, we strive to include all of the students fairly in the classroom. Therefore, multicultural education seems to be an obvious choice for integration. As teachers, you may be thinking that this sounds like a simple solution to fostering diversity. However, multicultural education will challenge teachers. It will defy the conventional relationship between educators and students and will take active effort to incorporate into the classroom. Authors Gita Deobru and Ed Elbers believe that a multicultural classroom will require teachers to constantly think creatively and evaluate teaching practices regularly. What's more, it will require that the educator evaluate him or herself and look for potential biases that may exist. James and Cherry Banks say multicultural awareness can result only from an in-depth work on self. It requires the unraveling of myths that perpetuate social class, gender, and racial privilege and a commitment to maintaining multicultural awareness and action. Although it requires time and effort, all educators should be willing to examine him or herself for the benefit of diverse students. One way to seamlessly weave multicultural education into the social studies curriculum is by incorporating literature. Stephanie Wasta says through these books, young children can identify with individuals in the stories and recognize the roles that culture, physical environment, family, and even social economic status play in one's identification with place. By allowing students to identify with the diverse characters and stories, they are beginning to appreciate and accept a global community and multicultural education. Dr. Brown from the African Studies program of Boston University reminds educators that they must first examine the literature they are providing to children. Fortunately, there are many resources available to help us as teachers. Through Scholastic, teachers can find multicultural literature on Native Americans, Latino Americans, African Americans, Jewish Americans, and Asian Americans. We will examine some of these suggestions. To incorporate Native American culture, teachers in 3rd, 4th, or 5th grade may choose to use Beyond the Ridge by Paul Goebel. This story focuses on the death of an elderly Native American woman from 2 perspectives. It follows the woman who passes and her experience in the afterlife. It also follows the experience of her family and the preparations they are making. This will teach students about the Native American perspectives on life and death, family, and value. To teach Asian American culture, teachers in the upper elementary grades may choose to use the book Hiroshima by Lawrence Yep. This historical fiction book is from the perspective of a young girl who becomes severely injured in the bombing and moves to the United States for treatment, and whose family is forever impacted. This book will teach students about World War II, Asian American history, and the fear of nuclear war. In today's societal climate, it is crucial for students to examine children's literature that focuses on Middle Eastern culture. One book available on Amazon does that perfectly is One Green Apple by Eve Bunting, illustrated by Ted Lewin. This book follows the story of the Muslim student Farah, the new student in school. She feels very different and experiences animosity from some of her new classmates. However, on a trip to the apple orchard, Farah and her classmates begin to learn that differences can be strengths rather than weaknesses. This book is perfect for teaching students about Middle Eastern culture, what it feels like to be different, and acceptance. Not only does literature teach about different cultures, it teaches important messages about the global community and the acceptance of all diverse peoples. There is no shortage of ways that multicultural education can be integrated into the social studies classroom. Paul Gorski created a variety of activities that can be integrated into the social studies curriculum and are meant to foster multicultural education awareness in an elementary classroom. One suggested activity is meant to foster respect and understanding among students. This activity can be adapted depending on the grade level. The teacher begins by allowing students to form pairs with students they do not know well. Then the teacher gives them a concept to discuss. The example given by Gorski is the word respect. The students discuss this in pairs and then come together to discuss as a whole class. Students will learn that different cultures understand the concept of respect differently. Things that are considered respectful in some countries may be considered rude in others. The goal is for students to develop an understanding of different perspectives and its cultural relevance to multicultural education. Older grades can complete the activity with terms like racism, sexism, and more. Another activity that Mr. Gorski suggests is for students to create an I am poem that can be used in social studies class. In this activity, students write a poem about themselves and every line begins with the phrase I am. Students can be encouraged to write about memories, where they are from geographically, ethnically, interests, family traditions, and more. After students present their poems to the class with a partner or with a collaborative group, students can seek commonalities. This activity will help students to appreciate commonalities among diverse students and appreciate humanistic differences in a safe and expressive format. The question of focus was, can multicultural education and culturally relevant pedagogy be used to increase student interest in social studies? After examining the 5 dimensions of multicultural education defined by Banks, the need for equity pedagogy, and culturally relevant pedagogy such as cultural universals, the answer is certainly yes. If educators implement the 5 dimensions in the school environment, strive to use culturally relevant literature in the social studies curriculum, and allow students to reflect alongside their classmates in activities such as the I Am poem, then students will be receiving a multicultural education that will foster acceptance. It is a fact that diversity is increasing in our school. Teachers may need to challenge themselves to make multicultural education a priority, but it will ensure that every student's diverse needs are met.